Tsavo, east, midday. A heavy thud in the dust broke the heat. 20 feet from the edge of the ranger post, a bull elephant had collapsed. He had not stumbled. He had not made a sound. One moment there had been movement between the trees, and then he was on the ground, legs folded awkwardly beneath his body. His ears didn't flick. His tail didn't move. There was no dust rising from breath, just heat lifting off his skin in waves. Samuel stood from his stool and walked forward, slow. He didn't call for help. Not yet. He only stepped until he could see the elephant's flank. Hollowed from dehydration, bone lines sharp beneath sun-cracked skin. There were 2 visible wounds, neither fresh. A gouge below the shoulder, torn and dried, and a second along the back leg, ringed in gray mud but flaking apart in the sun. The bull didn't react. One eye was open but unblinking. The flies moved freely there. Still 10 feet away, Samuel stopped. He watched the rise of the ribs. There was movement. Shallow, spaced out, but steady. He turned back toward the station, took a radio from the rail, and pressed it softly to his mouth. Male. Down. Breathing. Needs assessment. Now. He gave the coordinates and didn't wait for a reply. The nearest team was at least 40 minutes away. That was if they moved fast. He knew they wouldn't. Not because they didn't care, but because a fallen adult male meant risk, and risk requires careful steps. He stepped closer. 5 feet, then 2. The bull didn't shift. There was a smell of sunburnt skin and iron. His head had settled low on one side, trunk curled loosely in the dust. The exposed side of the trunk was cracked white, old clay or calcium. Samuel bent slightly, just enough to see the chest. Each breath drew in no more than an inch of movement. Samuel straightened again. If he tries to rise, he'll break his own legs, he whispered. That was the truth. If he panicked, tried to flee, he would collapse again. Maybe for the last time. He turned, moved back toward the station. Inside, a bucket of water, a frayed cotton cloth. He soaked the cloth and returned. Slowly, deliberately. The elephant didn't move. With one motion, he lowered the wet fabric onto the trunk. It made a soft slap. The skin flinched. Barely, but it flinched. He waited. No reaction followed, but the ribs continued. In and out, still spaced, still shallow, but still moving. Samuel sat cross-legged in the dust beside the trunk. He didn't touch the cloth again. He didn't speak. The wind passed through the grass, too dry to bend. Nothing in the clearing moved. He reached for his radio again, quieter this time. Still breathing. Aware. Can't rise. He looked at the distance from the trees. Too far from shade. Too close to the sun. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. No new movement, but no decline. A fly landed near the bull's eye. The lid didn't close. Samuel reached forward and brushed gently across the skin. The lid didn't close, but the pupil turned slightly. He was watching. At the 50-minute mark, the first reply came over the radio. On our way, with fluids. ETA 25. Samuel didn't respond. He just kept brushing the flies from the eye and the folds near the jaw. Every few minutes the ribs lifted. Then fell. That was all. He stayed seated, one hand near the trunk, not touching. The other resting in dust. The bull didn't cry, didn't flinch, didn't fight. He was too far past all that. When the wind shifted, it carried heat off the body in sudden, sharp waves. Samuel leaned slightly away. The bull's ear lifted once, then dropped. Samuel whispered, "Still in there." And for now, that was enough. Samuel did not move for some time. The bull's breath came slow, shallower than before. The chest barely lifted, just enough to keep life present, but not enough to sustain it for long. The wounds along the leg had darkened now, not with bleeding, but with dust, sealing over with heat. He leaned closer, scanning the stomach for parasites, infection, or swelling. There was none. Just exhaustion. Collapse from thirst, hunger, maybe pain. Or all three. The radio crackled again, faint under the static. Still en route. Traffic near the gate, 40 minutes minimum. He didn't answer. There was nothing useful in reply. 40 minutes, if nothing changed, meant survival. If anything changed, it would be over long before help came. The bull's ear fluttered once, weakly, brushing dust from the ground. Samuel dipped the cloth again. The water was no longer cold, just cool enough to matter. He wrung it out with both hands, knelt, and placed it slowly across the thick upper ridge of the trunk. The skin tensed under the cloth. A pulse ran up through the trunk muscle, brief and shaky. Then it stopped, but it had been there. Samuel let the cloth sit for a while, then moved it again, wiped down the opposite side. A soft line of gray clay lifted, streaking the damp fabric. The bull didn't react, but the ribs rose once more, deeper this time. He reached back into the bucket, poured a small amount onto the cloth and gently brushed it beneath the lower jaw. The folds there were drier than the rest. The breath came again, steady, but with a faint rattle this time. Not collapse. Effort. Samuel looked toward the path. No vehicle yet. No sound, only the whine of insects and the low, endless hum of sun on dry earth. He moved to the elephant's leg. The wound there had crusted into ridges, brittle and splitting. He didn't touch it, just studied the skin around it. No swelling, no heat. He couldn't know if infection had reached the blood, but for now, the signs pointed to something else. Starvation, disorientation, exhaustion. The bull stirred again, barely perceptible. A tremor ran through one shoulder. The head shifted slightly and the trunk slid 2 inches through the dust. The cloth fell away. Samuel picked it up, soaked it once more, and laid it on the ear this time. The ear didn't lift, but the pupil turned again, watching. A shadow passed overhead. A vulture. Then another. Samuel stood, stepping between the carcass birds and the body without needing to look up. "Not yet," he said, quiet, not forceful. Just a statement. He returned to the ground, this time sitting at the bull's side. Not touching, just near. Close enough to notice how much slower the ribs lifted now that the sun was directly overhead. He took the cloth, pressed it into the soil, and squeezed out the last water to dampen the dust around the face. The scent of heat lessened. Every few minutes the trunk moved, just a little. Not searching, not reacting. Just a reminder. He was still there. Samuel checked his watch. 15 more minutes. If the team kept their word. The bull didn't have 15 to spare. Not if his organs were failing. Not if the breath grew any shallower. So Samuel leaned down and whispered something again. Something short, something quiet. No begging, no plea. Just presence. He picked up the cloth and placed it again. Trunk, cheek, ear. The skin tensed faintly beneath each touch. Not gone. Not yet. The sun began to lean westward. Heat no longer radiated in waves, but the air still held a dry stillness that pressed low to the ground. The elephant had not moved in over an hour, though his breath continued. Faint, distant, but present. A soft wind passed once, scattering old leaves near the edge of the outpost wall, but not enough to shift the dust crusting around the bull's eyes. Flies had begun to cluster there, thickening at the corners of the lids. Samuel took a soft strip of gauze from the med kit the team had left behind days earlier. It wasn't meant for a creature this size, but it was all he had. He dipped it in the remaining water and returned to kneel at the elephant's head. Slow, without touching skin, he hovered the damp cloth over the eye, then gently brushed downward. The dust peeled in thin layers. Beneath it, the skin was darker, slightly swollen at the edge. The eye didn't close. But when he brushed again, slower this time, the pupil shifted. Not fully, not fast, but just enough to find the direction of the motion. Samuel paused, hand still, then spoke. "You're not done." It wasn't a command, it wasn't hope, it was a fact, said plainly, like a ranger would say to a fence post still standing after storm season. The flies scattered at his motion but returned within seconds. The cloth swept again, then again. The skin twitched once. The breathing had not changed in rhythm. But the depth, slightly deeper. Enough to be seen. Enough to know he was listening. Behind them, the air had cooled slightly, and with it came a distant murmur. Not vehicles, not voices. Wind, soft and brittle. Samuel didn't turn. He stayed near the head, brushing, now using only his fingers to lift dirt from around the temple folds. The elephant's trunk flexed again, small and loose, dragging through the soil by less than an inch. Across the ridge, a long, thin shadow cut down toward the base of the acacias. Dusk would fall within the hour. The radio had gone silent. Help, if it had come, was still not in sight. But Samuel didn't check again. The light would fade soon. And he knew what that meant. When night fell, temperatures would drop fast and cold would take its own toll. For a body already failing, the chill could do what the heat had not. He rose, stepped once to the supply crate and brought back the last clean towel. He folded it over his arm, not to cover, the size would barely drape a leg, but to block the late light from striking the bull's face. He held it there, steady, arm raised, for 10 minutes, then 20. His shoulder ached. The light continued to shift, but now only the warmth, not the glare, reached the elephant's face. The eye remained open. At last, the bull moved. Not a full shift, just the right hind leg, tensing, drawing half an inch toward the body. The motion stopped. Dust lifted, then settled again. It was enough. Samuel exhaled, finally sitting back onto the warm ground. Towel folded at his side. He didn't reach out again. He didn't speak. The elephant's ribs rose, fell, rose. In the deepening orange light, his body seemed heavier, as though the weight of survival pressed from within. But the breath remained. The eye remained open. No vehicle arrived. No other voice came. Samuel sat alone through dusk, knees to chest, head low, watching the elephant breathe until the light was gone. At first light, the sky was pale and cold. A light mist clung low across the plains near Tsavo's southern rise, curling around the brush line like breath not yet exhaled. Samuel had not slept. He sat where he had the night before, spine pressed to a dry tree trunk, hands folded loosely across his knees. The elephant hadn't moved since dusk, but the breath remained. It came slower during the darkest hour. For a while, Samuel thought it might stop altogether, but then a long sigh had lifted from the trunk, and a faint tremor passed through the bull's flank. That was hours ago. Now, just before sunrise, the rhythm had steadied again, thin but alive. The radio was quiet, no updates, no team, just wind and insects and the low hush of morning settling in. Then a sound, from the far ridge, a single trumpet. Not loud, not panicking, just long and clear, rising like a question across the distance. Samuel turned his head, scanning toward the slope. Another call followed, slightly lower, layered beneath the first. He stood slowly. At the ridge line, a small herd came into view. 5 elephants, maybe 6, 2 juveniles, a bull calf in the middle, a larger female in front. They moved slowly, no urgency in their stride, as if drawn by memory or scent. Or something else altogether. One of the younger females paused, trunk lifted, catching the wind. She didn't move again. Another stopped beside her. They didn't trumpet, didn't approach, just stood there, eyes fixed down toward the clearing. The bull did not move, but the air around him changed. His ear lifted, only slightly, but it rose. Then the rib cage expanded wider than it had the night before. A deeper breath. It came with effort, slow and raw, but fuller. Another followed, and another. Samuel stayed still. The herd remained where they were, silent now, watching. For long minutes, nothing else happened. Then the bull's trunk curled weakly to the side, dragging once in the dust. A soft groan came from his throat, low and broken, but real. His body shuddered, legs still useless, but the breath had changed. No longer shallow reflex. It is in shape now, strain, intention. The matriarch on the ridge took a single step forward. Samuel said nothing. Another elephant followed her lead, younger, hesitant. Then they stopped again. 5 pairs of eyes fixed on the figure in the clearing. None of them turned away. The air felt heavier, not from heat, but weight. The weight of presence, of recognition. The bull groaned again, louder this time. The sound cracked halfway through, but he held it. The effort left him trembling. One leg twitched. Dust shifted beneath his flank. Samuel stepped backward, giving space. His eyes never left the herd. They didn't move. They didn't leave. They waited. And the bull, still on the ground, ribs heaving now in uneven waves, breathed like he was trying to reach them without standing, as if breath alone might close the distance. In that quiet, something passed between them. They had seen, and he had tried. The wind shifted slightly. The mist began to rise. Samuel lowered his head and whispered, "They know." But the words were not needed. The herd remained, still, watching, witnessing. Samuel began before the sun cleared the trees. The herd had remained visible along the ridge, not moving closer, not retreating. The bull's breathing came deeper now, but more strained, like each inhale searched for strength that wasn't there. His trunk had shifted slightly in the night, and now lay curled closer to his chest. The skin along his shoulders, once hot to the touch, had cooled unnaturally. Not recovery. Warning. The body turned inward to preserve what little remained. Samuel walked to the well. It was nearly 100 meters from the clearing. No pipes, no pump. Just a rope and pulley and 2 rusted buckets. He dropped one, filled it, carried it back. Then again. By the 4th trip, his shoulders ached. The sun was climbing fast. Time mattered now. He pulled an old canvas blanket from the storehouse, soaked it thoroughly, and laid it gently over the elephant's back. The skin tensed. A faint twitch ran the length of the spine. Samuel waited. No panic, no motion. Only breath, louder now. He reached for a smaller cloth, dipped it in the bucket, and began wiping down the ears. Cracked and flaking, their edges had blistered from the day before. He pressed lightly, then rubbed a line of diluted saline just beneath the folds. The elephant didn't resist. Every 20 minutes he returned to the well. Buckets, then blanket. Cool, then warm again. The herd had not moved. By late morning, the canvas was dark with minerals and sweat. Samuel turned it, soaked the other side, and placed it again. The elephant shifted slightly beneath the weight. A groan escaped his chest, deeper than before. He poured water in small arcs across the flanks, careful not to shock the body. The skin rippled, once, then again. When the vehicle finally arrived, the dust cloud gave it away before the engine did. A battered Land Cruiser pulled into the clearing, and 2 figures stepped out, a vet and a junior assistant. Both paused when they saw the elephant. Then they looked at Samuel. His shirt was soaked, his hands covered in red dust, his eyes hollow from the night. The vet approached slowly. She knelt, checked the bull's eye, lifted the ear, pressed near the flank. Listened, waited. Then I looked up. He shouldn't have made the night. Samuel nodded once. He never let go. The vet stood silent for a moment. Then she reached for the supplies. Saline drips were prepared, antibiotics drawn. But there was no rush. Every motion was slow, deliberate, grounded in what the body could still bear. Samuel stepped back, letting them work. His part was done. But still he hovered nearby, folding the blanket again, rinsing the clothes, keeping the flies away from the eyes and wounds. The vet glanced at him once more. "How long has he been like this?" "Since yesterday afternoon." "And you've been—" He didn't answer. She didn't ask again. By early afternoon, the vet placed her hand lightly on the bull's trunk. The pulse was faint but present. Temperature steady. Hydration marginally improved. She looked toward the ridge. The herd was still there. "They're waiting for him." Samuel didn't speak, but he believed it too. The sun arced overhead. Another bucket emptied. The canvas darkened again. The elephant breathed, slow, uneven, alive, and Samuel, though his hands trembled from exhaustion, reached once more for the rope at the well. By evening, the air had softened. The hard edge of the heat gave way to quiet warmth, and the light across the plains stretched long and low. The vet had packed most of her supplies by then. The IV bag hung empty. The injections had been done. There was nothing left to administer, only to wait, to watch, to see if the body chose to hold on. Samuel hadn't left the elephant's side. His hands were cracked from the buckets, his shoulders stiff from crouching, but he remained still. The bull had not stood, not even tried, but something had changed. A stillness that wasn't resignation. It was something else. A slow rooting back into life. Then, without warning, the bull's head shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No lifting of the chest, no sudden effort. Just the slow rise of the jaw from the earth. The trunk curled slightly inward. And then came a sound. Low, raw, almost a cough, but unmistakable. A trumpet, not strong, not full, but clear enough to carry. Across the plain, the herd moved. It was slow at first. The matriarch turned first, then the two younger cows. One of the calves followed, dragging a foot uncertainly. The ridge that had held them all day was no longer high enough to contain their attention. They began to walk. Samuel didn't move. The vet stood beside him now, saying nothing. The herd came in a half arc, not rushing, but steady, as if summoned not by the sound, but by its intention, by the fact that it had happened at all. The bull did not call again, but his eye followed them now, and his breath rose quicker as they drew near. 20 meters out, the matriarch stopped. The others halted behind her. One of the younger females, perhaps half the bull's age, broke formation. She stepped forward on her own, each motion cautious but sure. She lowered her head as she neared. 5 meters, then 3, then 1. She reached out her trunk. Samuel held his breath. The bull didn't flinch. Their trunks met, lightly. No strength, no push. Just contact me. The young female held the gesture for several seconds, then lowered herself slowly to the earth beside him. She folded her legs gently, shoulder to shoulder with his, and rested there. No one moved. The vet murmured, "That's his kin." Samuel nodded. But his voice barely carried when he whispered, "He's not alone." The other elephants waited, still at a distance, but the line between watching and belonging had been crossed. The sky deepened into amber. The two elephants lay in silence, side by side. The bull's trunk rose once more, curled slightly near hers, then stilled. Samuel stepped back. For the first time in 2 days, he let go of the cloth in his hand. The dust carried no heat now, only quiet. They had come to him, and they would stay. 3 days passed. The canvas blanket had long since been folded and set aside. The saline drips were gone. The vet had returned north, and Samuel had said little since. The elephant had remained down through each dawn and dusk, but he had eaten. dry grass placed near his mouth, handfuls of leaves carried in from the scrub beyond the station. He'd taken them slowly, chewing with long pauses, breath heavy between each swallow. His trunk moved with purpose now, not full strength, but intention. He reached, he chose, he responded. The young female stayed near him each night, sometimes standing, sometimes lying close, shoulder to flank. Her presence did not change his condition, but something in him stilled when she lay beside him. Her calm settled him. The rest of the herd kept their distance, but always within sight. That morning, something shifted. Samuel noticed it before the light had fully arrived. The bull's back leg tensed, not in spasm, in preparation. His forelegs folded tighter beneath his chest. He took one long, rattling breath and paused. The young female stirred beside him, lifting her head. Then, slowly, without sound, the bull moved. It began with a sway, forward, then back. The soil beneath him shifted. His front legs braced, rear legs slid halfway beneath his body. Another sway forward. A groan followed, low and strained. Dust kicked up behind him. Then, effort. He leaned forward, tried to rise, failed, dropped hard into the dust, ribs heaving. Samuel did not move. The bull waited a full minute, then tried again. This time his front legs held. One back leg straightened, then buckled. He groaned again, louder. A raw, scraping sound pulled from deep inside. The female rose beside him. She didn't push, didn't touch, just stood still. He leaned into the earth, then rose, not fast, not full, but he stood, upright, trembling, legs quivering beneath his weight. His ribs expanded wide, and he let out one long breath that gusted into the air like smoke off a cold fire. The herd stirred. The matriarch stepped forward first, then the others followed. They surrounded him in a loose circle, not crowding, just present. The young female remained near his side, her shoulder just touching his. He swayed slightly, legs unsteady, trunk dragging along the ground. But he did not fall. Samuel stood at a distance now. He had not approached me since the second morning. He watched from beneath the acacia trees, hands resting against his knees, face unreadable. His job, in a way, was over. Then, quietly, a young calf broke from the group. Not the youngest, but close. It stepped lightly through the dust, trunk swinging low. Without hesitation, it walked straight to Samuel. He didn't kneel. He didn't extend his hand. The calf brushed its side gently against his leg, once a soft lean, then turned and walked back. No sound passed between them, but something had been said. The bull remained standing. Dust lifted slightly around his feet, carried eastward in the warming wind. One ear flicked, then again. He was not strong yet, but he was standing, and they were with him. Weeks passed. The rains had begun, not heavy yet, but enough to soften the edges of the land. Patches of green returned in strips along the southern plains. The southern river bend, long silent, now shimmered faintly with slow-moving water, and with it came life. Birds, insects, wandering herds drawn by memory or scent. Among them, one bull returned. He was seen first at dawn, standing near the bend, just beyond the tall grass. Scarred, but upright. Not separate from the herd, but not deep within it either. Two younger females grazed near his side, not touching, but close enough to show belonging. His back still held the long dip of dehydration, the deep groove that doesn't fade quickly. His leg bore the dark ridge of the old injury, but he moved evenly, pulled grass with his trunk, rested weight across all 4 feet, no tremble in the motion, no collapse. Samuel didn't go to see him right away. The report came from another ranger, brief, unadorned. The bull's back, near the river, standing strong. Samuel had simply nodded. He didn't ask for photos or time. He let the silence stretch. Then, one morning, without announcing it, He took a canvas satchel and walked. The path was the same one he'd taken weeks earlier, worn now by his own feet and the tracks of the small water truck that had once come late. But no one else had touched the clearing since. There was no need. The place where the bull had fallen looked different now. The hard-packed dust had softened, smoothed by wind and a brief brush of rain. No grass had grown back, not fully. The soil was too compressed, too exhausted. A pale, bare patch stretched 20 feet wide, quieter than the rest of the plain. Nothing marked it, no plaque, no stone, no rope boundary, just earth and sky and wind. Samuel stepped to the edge, then paused. There were prints. Not old, not scattered, fresh, one set large, unmistakable. Deep toe pads, slight drag on the left hind leg. A healed wound that would never quite allow full weight. Another set, smaller, overlapping now and then. A third, calf-sized, closer together, more erratic. They looped once through the clearing, then curved out again, tracing the edge of the bare ground. Samuel crouched slowly and pressed his hand into one of the impressions. The soil under his palm, damp still from last night's mist. He didn't smile, just stayed there, hand in dust, breathing with the stillness. The herd had passed through. Or maybe not passed. Maybe returned. He stood and walked across the center of the clearing. He knew where the elephant had fallen, though no sign remained. That shape, massive, still, broken, would never leave his memory. He remembered the moment the breath nearly stopped, the hours spent carrying water, the flies that had gathered around the eye, and the eye that stayed open. He stopped at the center and looked down again. Nothing there but flat dust. The same dust that had once carried heat so sharp it had blistered his hands. Now it moved gently in the wind. He took the jug from his satchel. Just a small one. Not for washing, not for cooling. He uncapped it, poured a slow stream across the ground. It curved through the soil, sinking into the powdery red like memory sinking into silence. Then he sat, cross-legged, quiet. The wind passed once, stirring a line of grass at the edge of the clearing. The only sound. No elephants in sight now, no trumpets, no groans. Just the memory of weight, of struggle, of what had once happened here and what had somehow reversed. He stayed until the sun tilted slightly west, casting long shadows over the bare ground. Then he rose, brushed dust from his palms, and turned toward the trees. Behind him, the prints remained. Not marked, not protected, but there. And where the bull had once laid, ribs rising with effort, skin cracked from sun, surrounded by nothing but time, there was only open space now, open and quiet.